So I just caught up with Apple TV Plus's biggest ever movie release on the platform, Ghosted, starring Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. I'm a week late to this one, but hey, I still checked it out, and let's see how it falls in the Hot Pockets to hand grenade spectrum. So this film was actually pretty interesting, as in it felt like a time capsule movie, as in I feel like this was written like 15 years ago and it just never got put into production because they could never find the director or the crew, and it just kept getting delayed until it was finally made for streaming. Uh, Maybe 16 to 13 years too late. This felt very similar to some of those mid to late 2000s, like spy rom com movies, which seems way too common. Like, not even just spy rom coms, but also just like spy, double life, regular Joe, and they're together. Like, it seemed really common in the mid 2000s to late 2000s to make that kind of movie, and that's exactly what this feels like. So, the story is mostly about Chris Evans' character, who is a very not confident, um, needy person who craves being in a relationship and doesn't really know when to stop and set up boundaries. And Ana de Armas' character, which is the secret agent who is distant and needs to let love into her life. So, of course, these two get together because that's just how rom coms work. But this one has an interesting dynamic where they are legitimately just arguing all the time. And the script doesn't the story doesn't really account for why they get together, other than Chris Evans and Ana de Armas just have really good chemistry, on screen chemistry, and they're just good charismatic actors to be in this film. So a lot of the story is a bit mumbo jumbo and would be passable, like would be extreme way more passable back in the early 2000s than it is nowadays, with how cheesy it is. So that's a hot pocket score for the story. Cinematics is weird at moments. If there was like just random slow motion, which made me laugh, not because it was funny, not because necessarily the movie was funny, but just because it was funny how they were using slow mo, which really makes that 2000s feel of a movie. So, and there's not much else to it. The soundtrack, there are so many needle drops in this film. Like, it just randomly starts playing music, and the only reason I can even remember that this movie came out post 2010 is because there's Chris Evans, there's Ana de Armas, and the music that they select, like, it's a bunch of like 80s and 70s songs, and then all of a sudden, just Uptown Funk. Just out of nowhere, just starts playing Uptown Funk. And every time they did a needle drop, I couldn't help but start laughing because it was just too funny. It was just so random. There was no context as to why it would drop, why they would start playing a song there. And the song doesn't always fit the tone of the movie, which made it even better. But yeah, that's you know what? I'll give it a hand grenade because I was jamming to the soundtrack. Now, the directing, the directing was was fine. It was passable. It was good. It was some pretty decent action. Again, I have to mention the random slow mo segments, and I definitely wasn't bored during this movie. And there were some parts that ran a little long, but I wasn't. I was entertained throughout most of it. So let's give it a hand grenade score. The acting, um, I just remembered a whole sequence of events that I'll get into the expectations slash spoilers segment. But yeah, the acting was very much all right. Chris Evans and Ana de Armas, there's only so much they can do, and yeah, they did all they could. But yeah, I'm gonna have to give this a hot pocket score. This would be a hand grenade if this was back in 2000. This movie was released in the 2000s, and I had nostalgia for it. But there's no nostalgia to have with this one in particular, just of the genre. And as mentioned before, when it's a hot pocket score, that means that there are many other options to grab from. But now let's talk about the fun part, which is my expectations slash experience. Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting a fun ride. I got a fun ride, except I got a much cheesier early 2000s ride than I was expecting. Like everything, the visual effects felt a little early 2000s. Like everything felt early 2000s, but not necessarily in a bad way. Like that good way. Like they don't make this anymore. And honestly, I can see why they don't make this type of movie in particular anymore. And that's really funny. And much like an early 2000s movie, it just has random cameos for no real reason. My favorite, there's this whole segment in the middle of the movie, and I know it's like literally dead on in the middle of the film. There is this sequence where Chris Evans' character has a bounty on his head, and then a bunch of bounty hunters infiltrate, and then it's just cameo after cameo after cameo. And I think this is like common knowledge now because of the internet and how it's been like a week since this movie has come out. But like it just randomly Anthony Mackie shows up, and then me and my group, we made a joke saying, "Oh hey, look, it's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier," and we're like, "Well, that's not the Winter Soldier, it's Captain America." And then just like randomly he says, "Oh yeah, you two should get a room," and then he just dies, and then John Cho shows up, and I'm like, "Oh, I like him too, I know that actor." And then like he complains about those two and say, "Oh, you two should just get a room already." And then all of a sudden Sebastian Stan shows up, and then we're like, "Oh hey, look, there's Falcon, the Winter Soldier, and Captain America." Because of course everyone just compares them to one famous role and not the actors' names. And then that was just so funny to me. And then like it's a solid like 5 minute sequence which really made the whole movie for me, where these assassins just get introduced, they kill one person, they say how, oh, like it's this whole sequence of a character says, "Oh, you two should just get a room already," then the person dies and gets replaced by another one, and it just happens for like 4 people in a row in this like 5 to 6 minute sequence, and it just was so funny to me. And then just randomly at the end of the movie, Ryan Reynolds shows up. And honestly, it makes no sense, and that's what makes it so early 2000s. My expectations and experience, I'm giving it a hand grenade score just because that is pure early 2000s camp and cheese right there. So, this film is a certified Hot Pocket movie, but if it was released in the early 2000s, that's a certified hand grenade, baby. But certified Hot Pockets due to the fact that it wasn't released 16 years ago. But other than that, leave a like, comment down below if, yeah, Ghosted, if you've seen it, or if you're even planning on it. But other than that, I guess I'll leave you guys to it.